I'm Chip Freud, and this is the Artist Spotlight, conversations with contemporary artists based on 5 simple questions that explore the artist's journey, creativity, and sources of inspiration. Welcome to another episode of the Artist Spotlight podcast. Today I have the honor of speaking with Jiang. JJ is an award-winning oil and watercolor painter who now calls Cary, North Carolina home. JJ is a trained architect and architectural historian who has been creating art, design, and poetry from a young age. JJ, what a pleasure it is to welcome you to the show today.
Well, very happy to be here with you, Chip.
As our listeners know, the first step of these interviews is to have you share a little something about your current project, maybe something you just finished, something you're getting ready to work on, something in your art space.
Well, recently, really, is a very busy period of time. I've got one personal show this coming month, which require 30 pieces of work from me. That's a big task, so I'm very engaged in that activity right now. And also have 3 workshops to teach in the month of September and October. And plus, I'll be honored to invite back to this year's North Carolina Watercolor Society annual exhibit. I invited back to be a critic this year, and so that's I feel very kind of honor for me to do that. It's a very busy period of time.
I would say so. 30 works. That's for some artists, that's almost a lifetime. Where is the solo show?
This solo show is going to be held in Beaufort, North Carolina. It's called the fall party, happening in every year. October is a big event for them, sponsored by the historical site organization that Raising Fund. It's a big event, heavily promoted.
Excellent. That sounds really exciting. And that's such a wonderful part of the state too. So
Yeah.
I'll have to see if I can get down there for it. Well, the heart of our discussions on the podcast are our 5 questions. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. What is your earliest memory of making art of any kind?
Well, my memory really goes back to when I was a 5-year-old. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about my background. My background is probably different from most of your guests, perhaps. And I was born and grew up in China. And I didn't come to this country, United States, until I was almost 30 years old. So you see, I spent a significant part of my life in China. And my childhood and earlier youth was spent during the Cultural Revolution. Probably a lot of people here knows about that crazy period of time in China. And Cultural Revolution started when I was 4 years old. And during that period of time, and a lot of violence, and books burned or banned. And so the outside world crazy, scary, and just a period of time of madness. So no books to read, and no other thing to do. Not safe to do anything outside. So the best, option for most of the young people, children, will be stay home. So that's what I did. I went deep. I stay home and tried to stay out of the trouble. But I also went deep into the world of my imagination. And the drawing is one of those things I did during that time of trouble. And so my memory goes, I can clearly still remember, when I was a 5-year-old, at least, I drew a lot of pictures. I drew everything from my imagination. And subject like soldiers, I think that's one of the things I remember I drew a lot. And airplanes and tanks, all those kind of things. I haven't seen an airplane in person. I haven't seen tanks in person either. So I drew all those things from my imagination. So that's my memory. Goes back.
Well, thank you for that and for giving us the context in which you were growing up and obviously influenced, your creative process and your thinking. Well, you're currently a watercolor and oil painter. What brought you to these two media and why?
For many years, watercolor has been my primary medium. And as a medium, watercolor is very easy to carry, to set up, and it's a lovely and a safe medium, comparatively speaking. So, but it also, as a medium, I think watercolor also has its limit. It's a quick medium. And one is not supposed to work on watercolor painting for days or weeks, not to mention months or years at a time, right?
Yeah.
But with oil, you can. We heard a lot of those great artists throughout history spend years work on one painting. With watercolor, you cannot do that. So I can give you an analogy here. I consider watercolor is like a short story writing, and oil is like a novel writing. So now I'm not just satisfied with just writing short stories. As an artist, I also want to write novels. So these days, I actually spend perhaps more time painting oil. And you probably also, guest visitors probably will see more oil paintings in my studio than watercolor these days.
That's a wonderful analogy. I don't think I've ever heard it described that way, but it just makes sense. The amount of detail and the time and the depth of the story that you can tell.
Right, right.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, what inspires your art? Where does it come from?
Well, obviously, I think come to this question, I give it some thought. I think first, probably a lot of the great artists and their work inspire me, of course. And then I would think nature and the man-made environment. I started architecture probably, so I love landscapes, but I also, because my background, I spent years, studied and architecture and traveling to different places, starting for the city design, architecture design. So I have this profound fondness of the man-made environment, buildings. So I love those are beautiful architecture, cityscape inspire me as well. Of course, there's another the subject I really you know enjoy doing is people. So those got most extraordinary creation. So obviously, it's a great inspiration to me. And last but not the least, and I think I got my inspiration from my unique background in the life. I told you, I talked earlier about my childhood and my early youth spent during the Cultural Revolution. I think a lot of that experience now come back sometimes. I recently wrote a blog called "Girls in Red Scarf." It really, linked my art creation to my youth and to my memory. So all those things, I think, uh, that's where I find my inspiration. To me, I also tell people, we as artists, we got to find our inspiration from all aspects of life. And I hope this answers your question, Chip.
Oh, yes, absolutely. No, that's lovely, lovely thoughts and sources of inspiration across there. As we move on through our questions, this is one that I know a number of our listeners have really enjoyed hearing the answers to, and that is, what advice would you give to an artist just starting out?
Yeah, that's the kind of question I know I can, I probably too old fashioned, and I can give some advice, but I don't think people like to hear. You know, I this is what I'm thinking. I think painting is a lot like a gardening. A good gardener puts a lot of hard work on the groundwork, preparing soil. After sow, after sow the seeds, then the great virtue is patient waiting. So I would give the advice would be, willing to put a lot of hard work into making and improving one's skill and work, and then be patient. But of course, these days we all know patience is very hard to be found these days. It's a rare commodity. And I just feel, I sense, even sometimes I feel myself being influenced by this kind of, this try to find a shortcut or overnight success. And social media and all online platforms only make things worse. So hardworking, patience sounds old-fashioned. I know people probably heard this before, and in the old days, the teacher, master all say the same thing, but these days, we probably don't want to hear about it. But it is proven way can leading to real success. I'm talking about real success. It's not those kind of, kind of how to kind of, try to uh, pretend to be success, you know.
Now, I think that's really important to reinforce that message. And I think you put it exceptionally well there. Uh, I was reading somewhere a number of years ago when I was starting out my art career,
Mhm.
and the message was similar, and it was, you get good at doing your work by doing the work.
Right, right.
No amount of workshops or YouTube videos or training is ultimately going to get you where you need to go. They may, as you say, prepare the foundation, prepare the soil, but ultimately you've got to get out there and just do it and do it and do it, and be willing to fail.
And be patient.
And
And I think
and that
this is
ultimately is it, the patience.
people,
Uh,
I find that I tell myself, be patient. At my age, at my this stage of my life, it sounds weird. Say, be patient. Life is short. How patient can you be? Maybe how many years ahead of me, right? But still,
yeah,
life
yeah.
still tell me this: be patient. Universe will have, if you have something, universe will give to you. If it's meant to be. If it's not, that's okay. But do your work. Enjoy the process.
Excellent, excellent. Well, our last question we wrap up each of the interviews with is, what artist would you recommend we go out and check out? And if you can't limit it to one, you can share a few, but this could be one of the mentors you grew up with, or could be somebody you recently discovered.
Well, I like the question a lot. Uh, I think the heroes is important for to our artistic growth. We all need to have many heroes, and I have a lot of heroes in my life. But since I'm living in America now, so I would suggest one of the American artists, Andrew Wyeth. Probably most of people know that, but I didn't know this person, artist, when I came to this country. I found him by accident. One
Hmm.
time I took my children to the public library. You know, in the one of the oversized book section, I picked up one big painting book, and end up it's a collection of Andrew Wyeth's drawings and the paintings. So I flipped through the book, and then I cannot put it down.
Hmm.
So I spent a lot of time just flipping through that book over and over. I know my impression that time was this: his work is not pretty, okay, even though it's extraordinarily executed. His craftsmanship, his skill is superb. But I cannot say I don't say his work is pretty, but somehow there is a lot of emotion. There is a sense of a melancholy. There is a sense of isolation. So those kind of things just grab me that time, and the rest of the story. Then I just started to do a lot of research about uh, this artist. Then I started travel. I traveled to his, the ground that he worked, his homestead, his studio, and I tried to get all the books published about him. I read his biography and all those things, and he remained to be one of the great inspiration and to me.
Hmm.
And so I see his work is not pretty. I think that's it. Maybe I told people is this, you know, pretty work is beautiful work, probably created for please people's eyes. We call them eye candies, right? But great work touches people's soul. So that's how I feel being touched by his work. I feel that connection. I feel his emotion. So that's one of the things. And then, second things I suggest when people check into Andrew Wise' work, not just look at his work, but understanding his life, the period of historic at the time he lives in, and go to the place he did his creation. Andrew Wise during his lifetime were never popular with the most critics. And he was terribly, terribly criticized, ridiculed, insulted. This is a truth. But how can he pull through all those things and stay the course to be himself, create the art, stay on his ground? I think deep in his heart, that's that kind of a great self-trust. So made him a great American artist. I think his status, I really think this, his status in art is a lot like Frank Lloyd Wright in architecture. I know I studied architecture, so I familiar with Frank Lloyd Wright, and same way I enjoy his work tremendously. So I say Andrew Wise's status in art is like Frank Lloyd Wright in architecture or Whitman in literature. They are all uniquely American, but at the same time, they are undisputably universal at the same time. And they all have great influence today, not just in America, but around the world. They're truly American geniuses. And so that's why I really, this is one artist I really recommended. And actually, this past May, just a few months ago, June, I actually went to his homestead studio in Pennsylvania, Chatsford. And I did Brandywine tour, museum tour, see his work and his family's work. I went to his studio, his father's studio, and I also went to the farm he used to sketch, paint a lot, and I met the Carl's Junior Third. Carl's, he also told me a lot about Andrew Wise. He is a great friend with the Andrew Wise family, and he's an artist as well. He told me even more. So we started. Well, it doesn't mean we have to paint like him, but I think we got see what if we truly understand him and study a little bit more about him, we will be inspired by him.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful sort of pilgrimage you went on to sort of immerse yourself in an artist that you found great inspiration from.
Yes. And then last year I went to his homestead in Maine, coastal Maine. So yeah, I feel that it really gave me so much inspiration. And so there are some other American artists as well, but I don't want to to mention too many because I think everyone probably they will have to find some of their own. But this is one I strongly recommend.
Well, thank you for that recommendation. Well, that brings us here to the end of the show, and I want to make sure that our listeners have the opportunity to to see and experience your work. So, of course, they can find you online at jjjiang.com and at the Village Art Circle Studio and Gallery in lovely downtown Cary. And of course, on social media, Instagram and Facebook. And I will put the links to all of JJ's resources, plus Andrew Wyeth's link in the show notes. So that'll make it easy for everyone to get to the resources we've talked about here today. Well, JJ, this has just been a real delight. Thank you so much for making the time in your busy schedule.
Well, Chips, thank you again for this opportunity to share some thoughts with you and with the audience. And I really appreciate that.
All righty. Well, and this brings us to an end of another Artist Spotlight podcast. Tune in next time as we continue our discussions with contemporary artists. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Artist Spotlight with Chip Freund. Find accompanying blog posts at chipfreundphoto.com/blog, and you may subscribe to our show on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like listening.